Hello to the Shelf Indulgence Book Club. Thank you guys so much for reading We Were Never Here. I'm so honored. It is like such a dream and so crazy to think about you guys reading and discussing my book. So thank you so much to Brittany for reaching out and sending these awesome questions. And I hope that you guys have an amazing discussion and a lot of fun. And I hope that you had a lot of fun reading the book. Okay, so here goes. Brittany sent me a whole buffet of questions, and I'm gonna just pick a few for time's sake to not take up your whole meeting. But I'll start with this one. Can you tell us what research you did to develop it, and if you ever incorporate anything personal in your story? So the answer is yes. I'm always using all sorts of personal stuff. I have never killed a backpacker or anyone for that matter. But I do have a friend who now lives in Australia, and we do meet up in exciting far corners of the world together. We went to Chile together, which is when I had the idea for this book. And we went to Vietnam together, and we've done some other really awesome trips. So all the locations that I talked about, the girls going on trips at, are places I've been. So there was sort of a backdrop of location scouting, I guess, that came in handy later. I always do some sort of psychology work on my books and research on my books because I think of them as psychological thrillers. So in this case, I did some reading on codependency. I did some reading on trauma bonds. Obviously, these women are very, bonded by their trauma. I did some research on actual Americans locked up abroad and what sort of happens. I had to learn a little bit about international law and when to get an extradition and things like that. A lot of though not the plot points for the most part, but like a lot of feelings and relational things, and then often like details will be coming from my personal experience. I'm also from the Milwaukee area, lived in New York for 13 years, but I'm originally from there. So it was very fun to set a book there and, have to talk to some friends back home and have them help me get the details right and try to capture the loveliness and weirdness of that part of the world. It's all of my books are sort of a mishmash of stuff I've completely invented, flights of fancy, and some personal stuff. So I think it's fun for my close friends to read my books because they pick up so many details where they're like, I know where that came from. Okay, a question from Brittany was, did you know how this book would end when you started writing, or did it develop as it went? And I love this question. I had no idea where this book was going. As I mentioned, I had the idea while I was on a trip, and my friend and I were just joking about how all the things we needed to do to not get killed while traveling, or attacked or pickpocketed or assaulted or whatever. And it just sort of occurred to me in the moment, like, why did we never have fears? Why are men never worried about this? No one's ever worried about like the woman they encounter during their travels doing anything to them. And so I started the whole book with just this idea of like, what would flipping that on its head, like what would be a scenario where some women would actually be pushed to commit murder and cover it up while traveling, for the arrow of violence to go the other way. And so I wrote the entire book with just that as a premise. So I, again, stole from real life and had the one friend in Australia, the one friend from the States meeting up, and I just sort of followed the story wherever it went. So all of the twists and turns were surprises to me as well. And I definitely spent a lot of, when I was writing the middle section, I was like, I have no idea how this is going to end. I have no idea how Emily's going to get out of this, how she will ever not be in the shadow of these crimes, how she will ever not be like under the thumb of Kristen. And so I truly had no idea. And then this like miraculous thing happens when you're writing a book. And scene after scene, I like got all the way to the climax, and then like it kind of poured out of my fingers and really didn't change. Some of the resolution and the denouement had to get reworked, but the actual sort of climax and like how their friendship ended did not change. So yeah, it's the way that I always write books. I do it without an outline, and it's really fun because, like I said, those surprises are a surprise to me, but it's also quite terrifying. So thank God that so far they've all landed on some kind of ending. We'll see. And then I love this question too. Have you ever been told you were tempting fate? Can you tell us more about it and how you felt? So I worked, before the pandemic, I worked as a travel writer in addition to being a thriller author. So I would travel all over the place, often by myself, sometimes with one friend, a female friend, and go to new places and talk to strangers and try to experience a place and like find a cool angle and write. I would write for like a magazine or website about it afterward. And there were just so many times that somebody would say to me something like, ooh, like, oh, you're gonna spend a few weeks in Mexico, like I wouldn't want to do that, or oh, you're going to Uganda, like ooh, or one I love is, I wouldn't want my daughter to do that, or I wouldn't want my wife to do what you do. And it just very much struck me that like there's this implication that like I'm putting myself, like by having the gall to travel, I am like asking for it, right? I'm like inviting trouble and inviting violence against me. And it sort of feels like that, like, college girls, here's how to not get raped when you go out. Like, go out in a group, like have a, phone system so you check on each other. And it's all just absurd when you think about it, right? It's like college girls aren't the ones raping college girls. Like, we should maybe be talking to the men. And like, women aren't the ones like generally assaulting women on, while they're traveling. That violence tends to come from men. And so I just felt like, and this is sort of a discussion in the book, I felt like all of that was just a way, all of that sort of hand-wringing about women, endangering themselves by putting themselves in these situations is sort of a way to keep women's lives small, and to keep women in their place, and to keep them from having these experiences that are so empowering and informative. And like, for me personally, like traveling to some places on my own and even going through horrible situations. I had my wallet stolen on the second night of a 6-country, 2-week-long solo train trip around Central Europe. And my wallet was stolen and I had no way to get money, and I didn't speak Hungarian. This is in Budapest. I didn't know a soul. I had 5 more countries to go and they all had different currencies, and I was just so stressed out, but I like figured it out. And that figuring it out is part of I think a really empowering process for women. And I think that's an experience a lot of men get to have of like, oh, look, I got in a snafu and figured it out, and like I'm fine. And that sort of builds up their confidence. And I feel like women are kind of cut off from having some of those experiences that are so empowering and formative, and that sort of, teach us that we can, do great things and have a lot of agency, and that we don't need to, stay home or be afraid. So that was sort of the logic behind writing this book that turned that idea on its head, and that sort of had the arrow of violence go the other way, like I said, with like women being the ones attacking and killing a man in self-defense, yes, but still the arrow of violence is going the other way. And yeah, I just really hope that the book kind of, well, first and foremost, I hope it's just like a fun read for people. Like, I'm not trying to change the world, I'm just trying to entertain you for a few hours. But beyond that, it's really cool that it seems to be inspiring some conversations about violence against women and women's safety, and what it means that like men can travel alone, but we tell women not to go anywhere by themselves. And I just hope that it gets people like thinking and talking about these things and maybe seeing it in a new way, because I think solo travel is great, and like when the world opens up, I hope that all of us are doing it because it's so great. So I just want to thank all of you again for reading it. If you're an Amazon user and you liked the book, leaving a very quick, even 1-sentence review on Amazon is hugely impactful. No pressure, but you don't have to have purchased the book on Amazon to leave a review. And even if you didn't like it, I hope that, you know, something in it resonated as true or got you to think about things in a new way, a line, a character, a scene, whatever. And I hope it's a really awesome conversation. If you did enjoy We Were Never Here, you might like my 2 other thrillers. They're called The Lost Night and The Herd. They're also very much about complex female friendships. And yeah, thank you so much again for reading, and have a wonderful fall. All right, bye-bye.